Hi, welcome back to Recap Pro. Today we are going to recap a thriller/mystery film titled The Man from Toronto. Without wasting time, let's begin. In the opening scene, we see Teddy Jackson promoting his video on fitness ventures. He has an elastic band, a sweatsuit which is made up of garbage bags and his adjustable pull-up bar, but his ideas didn't come to work. In the next scene, we see a man, known as the Man from Toronto, entering a house to interrogate a suspect. Before he starts torturing him, he tells him a story while taking out the tools. The suspect says the man that he is wasting his time, and then the man heats the knife to torture him. He starts moving the knife towards the suspect. Before the knife touches him, he starts speaking and gives the information the man wanted. The man walks outside after getting the information. As he walks outside, the man who called Toronto kills the suspect by shooting him with the gun. In the next scene, we see Teddy and his wife Lori. Teddy wakes up and wishes happy birthday to his wife. He then tells his wife that he thinks to have a baby, but after listening to it, Lori says that he can't tell him that one, as he is well known for screwing things up. Then he surprises her with a romantic getaway at a cabin in Virginia, where he already reserved it, but she notices the reservation form is not clear because of low ink in his printer. Then she asks him about the business idea he had if he spoke to his boss about it. He replies that he is waiting for the right time and says that his boss will surely love it. Then he will get a lot of money and he will fix everything. Lori tells him to start with the toner of a printer. In the next scene, we see him head out towards his office to meet his boss, and along the way he distributes the flyers of Marty's Fitness. He arrives at Marty's Fitness and tells Marty about no-contact boxing, but he thinks that it is the worst idea he ever heard. He also says that he had printed the flyers for their fitness without an address or phone number. Marty does not have any choice but to fire him, even though Marty likes Teddy. Teddy tries to request him, but Marty throws his work into the trash. In the next scene, we see Toronto arrives back home and starts preparing his breakfast. Meanwhile, the handler was contacting him. As Toronto was taking it lightly, the handler tells him the next contract worth $2 million, where his job is to extract someone who lives in Virginia, where he doesn't have much time left to complete his job. He gets ready and heads out for his job. On the other hand, Teddy returns home. His wife asks him about the business idea. He lies to her and says it went well. Meanwhile, Toronto is in the car and receives a call from a handler. He says that he will get his payment in cash and gives house number 1465. On the other side, Teddy drops Lori at the spa where he is presenting a surprise. After dropping her off, he goes to the cabin he reserved. Because of low ink, he is not able to read the address properly. At the end, he reaches the cabin where Toronto was supposed to meet his target and collect his payment. The man opens the door thinking he is the man from Toronto, and Teddy thinks he is the host of the cabin. The man brings Teddy to the basement, where he sees a man kept as a hostage named Coughlin. Then Teddy realizes that he got into a big problem unknowingly. As the man thinks he is the man from Toronto and has a reputation, also thinks it is life-changing. One of the men wants to see how he does his job. Teddy gets nervous but keeps talking when the man kept hostage pleads with him. Teddy starts threatening him, and the man ends up giving the information those men needed. The man calls someone and informs them that he comes and tells him to inform the colonel about it. After a few moments, FBI agents come in and drop the flash grenade into the basement. After trying to shoot them, FBI agents shot a few gas cylinders, and because of it an explosion was caused and men got killed and destroyed Teddy's car. Teddy then tried to run away but got caught by FBI agents. Teddy is then interrogated by FBI agents who think that he is not the man from Toronto. But the agents need the man from Toronto because they need former Venezuelan Colonel Sebastian Marin. He attempted to stage a coup the previous year to overthrow the government, but he was stopped by U.S. intelligence. Before he was arrested, he and his wife managed to escape. As the thugs who were killed already informed the colonel that Teddy is the man from Toronto, FBI agents want Teddy to continue to be the man from Toronto so that they can reach the colonel and arrest him. The agents brief him on the information they know about the man from Toronto. Meanwhile, Toronto reaches the crime scene and starts to walk through the cops as if he is one of them. Toronto then finds Teddy's reservation and finds Teddy's Hotmail. Further, he finds the possible password of his account from his handler, where he finds Teddy's ads for fitness and finds that the man is mistaken to be him. As he is on his job, agents assign Agent Santoro to look after Lori. As Agent Santoro is cool and handsome, Teddy feels threatened. One of the agents says that there are many lives at stake, and Teddy wants something in return. He wants them to clear his tax lien, credit card debt, and his visa problems. Agents agree to all his demands. Teddy then calls Lori and tells her that he was called for a work conference, so he was not able to come there, but he didn't tell her that he got fired from his job. In the next scene, we see Santoro escorting Lori to a limo for luxury one day in Washington. Toronto reaches Washington and tracks Teddy as he brings him there to meet with Daniela. Toronto watches everything from a distance. Meanwhile, agents start to get worried because Teddy starts to mess up their plans. When Teddy asks about Colonel, her men take Teddy with them and set out from there. Toronto forces one of the agents by pointing his gun toward his neck and tells him to follow them. He throws him out of the car to mislead the police. Then on the other hand, Teddy asks them, "What's going on?" Daniela replies that Mr. Green is Coughlin's partner and he has the other half of what the Colonel needed, and tells Teddy to bring him to the Colonel. After a few moments, they step on the airstrip and plan to head to Puerto Rico. Then we see Toronto reveals himself and says he is the man they were looking for, but they still think that Teddy is the man from Toronto. Toronto then starts fighting and kills them, including the pilot, proving that he is the real assassin. Then he confronts Teddy. Teddy then replies that they are heading towards Puerto Rico to find Mr. Green. Later he calls Lori, where Lori is having a good time with her friend Annie. In the next scene, we see that they have landed in a field and they have arrived in Puerto Rico, and managed to get out of the plane before it explodes. Later Handler contacts Toronto and says as they do not leave witnesses alive, so he should kill Teddy. But Toronto replies that they need him alive as the Colonel has already seen Teddy and believes that he is Toronto. In the next scene, another assassin shows up called the Man from Miami, beats up his client with the golf club. He receives a call from a handler offering him to handle the mess with Toronto. Miami agrees and kills one more golfer who was witnessed using his golf club as a rifle. Toronto takes Teddy to the location where they will find Mr. Green. Toronto then explains to him how to act and pretend to be him so that they can reach Mr. Green. Teddy is then brought into a room with one of the Colonel's men, and Toronto is speaking with Teddy through an earpiece. Teddy then wants to interrogate 4 men held captives and find who Mr. Green is. He is given knives as a method to torture them. Teddy then by mistake slashes one of the men under his left eye, which starts bleeding. Instead of holding back, he then starts to puke on 2 of them. Suddenly one of them says, "I am Green." The head of those men notices the earpiece and gets ready to kill Teddy. Toronto then enters and kills the goons. Later then Mr. Green reveals that he and Coughlin worked on a defense research project, and also developed seismic explosives which are untraceable. His boss General Hansen asked for his help with a secret project 2 years ago. But he did not know that Hansen was working for the Colonel. After knowing that the Colonel is planning to blow up the Venezuelan embassy in Washington, they made 2 fail-safes, and a detonator requires a fingerprint encoded sequence made by Coughlin. So then Toronto cuts the finger off of Mr. Green and put it in a bag. Then they start to move and find the way out. The Man from Miami rushes after them. The Man from Miami throws Teddy off the building, but he manages to catch the decoration. On one side Miami and Toronto are fighting, and on the other side, Teddy is trying to get down by himself. On fighting, Miami got the thumb. Meanwhile Teddy falls on him and Miami drops the thumb and Toronto knocks him out. Toronto then contacts the handler. He further updates him on the situation. Meanwhile Teddy hears the conversation and believes that the handler is lying to Toronto. Later they both head to Washington, D.C. On a flight, Toronto tells Teddy that he is afraid and doesn't have guts. Toronto thinks that the only good thing that has happened to him is his wife Lori. As they reach, Teddy contacts Lori, and further, they plan to meet at a fancy restaurant. The FBI is alerted too. On one side Teddy brings Toronto with him, and on the other side Lori brings Annie. After meeting each other, Teddy and Lori give each other a small hug. Toronto then gets comfortable with Annie. Teddy then notices Miami entering the restaurant. Miami then catches them into the closet, where Miami and Toronto start fighting again. Teddy then tries to help Toronto, but he screws it up and shoots on his leg, by which Miami takes the thumb. Toronto and Teddy didn't end up here. They then steal a cop car to catch up to Miami. Teddy and the handler are going to meet the Colonel. They then head up to Colonel's hotel room. Teddy starts a conversation with Toronto and asks him about the job in Minnesota. Later then Toronto explains that the person who owes gambling debts to the wrong, he was supposed to kill him. But he didn't, because the man's kid was sitting inside the car. As the man committed a rampage, he regretted it. Toronto then tells that he wants to open his restaurant and not kill anymore after finishing this job. Teddy then enters the hotel and calls the handler and Miami as imposters, even though the handler tries to convince Colonel that he is not him. Meanwhile FBI agents show up and arrest both Colonel and his wife Daniela. Meanwhile, handler and Miami manage to escape. Toronto then takes the payment that the handler would have taken. Later Teddy notices wallpaper on a computer and he understands that the thumb belongs to Colonel's henchman. Teddy then rushes back home and finds the home empty. Lori was worried and called Marty and found that he had lost his job. As she did not know what was going on with Teddy, so she left a message saying that she is going to her mother's house. On the other side, the handler is contacting more assassins to go after Toronto and Teddy. On the next, Lori leaves him a message saying that she is catching a train at 4 p.m. to my mom's. He then quickly replies that, "Don't get on the train," and runs to the station to try to meet her, before she leaves. Meanwhile, Miami finds Teddy and tries to kill him, but Toronto reaches there and knocks him down and saves Teddy, and says that he didn't like the idea of killing you. Meanwhile, a man from Moscow and the man from Tacoma reach and start to fire on them. They then run into Teddy's old gym, and Toronto takes down the man from Moscow. At last, when the man from Tacoma was supposed to kill them, Miami saves them by shooting them. He then points the gun toward Toronto, but Teddy then knocks him down by finding courage within himself and he breaks his hand. Meanwhile, the handler shows up and starts firing grenades at Toronto and Teddy, demanding money. They then try to escape and reach a factory. They end up at the corner where the handler is pointing a gun at them. Toronto then throws a car key saying that the money is in the trunk. Teddy then pulls the lever and the handler falls into a hot vat where she burns and dies. Toronto then gives his car to Teddy to catch up to Lori. Teddy then reaches the station and meets with Lori and apologizes to hide things from her. As he left the car on the track, a car was plowed by the train, by which all the money flew away and Teddy got tackled by the police. 1 year later, Teddy and Lori are expecting a baby and Toronto opens his restaurant and dates Annie. Teddy's no-contact boxing gym business has taken off, and as Teddy destroys Toronto's car, he wants to kill him. Hope you like the video. And if you want to watch extra such amazing recaps, then do subscribe to our channel. Goodbye and take care.